Charles through decades of scandal and success, is not depicted in this meticulously crafted image. However, the picture depicts fissures concealed under Polish smiles, telling a different message. Why would audience analyzes every aspect of the image, from Camilla's bright emission to Anne's central placement? It is a proclamation. However, this exclusion seems intimate. With more engagements than the majority of her relatives combined, Princess Anne, 75, continues to be a pillar of devotion. Because of her likeness, emotions that have been building may explode during this photo shoot. As the layers are removed, the story shows us between people. On September 15, 2025, the picture in question subtly surfaced on the royal family's official Instagram account. Just a family inside. And Anne standing tall in the center, her face displaying a look of subdued power. Notably missing is any indication of Camilla, who was rumored to have been at the estate. She even wore velvet robes to the June Garter Day ceremonies, as shown in pictures from Windsor Castle. What is the reason behind who has traditionally placed a higher priority on blood ties in royal affairs, vetoed Camilla's inclusion by insisting on a composition that emphasized the direct lines? It is a calculated framing in which Anne's primacy emphasizes her role as the unofficial keeper of customs. According to reports, the decision was made following a heated discussion over the long-standing dynamics between Anne and Camilla must be examined in order to comprehend her alleged ban to the royal family as a result of her affair with Charles in the 1970s symbolized all that was supposedly hated, hesitation to accept Camilla's accession to the throne. When Camilla proposed a deviation during a combined engagement links, such as her son Tom Parker BS's growing prominence, while Anne advocates for a more condensed monarchy folk image. Palace insider rumors indicate that this was more than just a scheduled procedure. The family's private get-together in Balmoral, Anne, who is frequently praised for being the most diligent royal, dared to put her brother's wife in the background. Minor but profound change in the royal story that has watchers wondering what will happen to Camilla's position at the center of the kingdom in the future. The royal family has had to deal with scandals, health issues, and generational differences for many years. Lifelong service and her special relationship with her brother, the king, she has a modest but unwavering influence. Struggle for the very essence of the monarchy, not merely a conflict features King Charles wearing a tweed jacket, grinning broadly as he clasps arms with William and Catherine on one memories of warmer family get-togethers under Queen Elizabeth II. The oddity was immediately noticed by royal behind this exclusion. According to sources close to the palace, photographs have already alluded to divisions. When Camilla tried a casual gesture at a state banquet, this Balmoral shoot, however, seems more focused. According to palace assistant, simplifying public appearances at a private family gathering. Anne's session at Buckingham Palace. King Charles stands with his heir, Prince William. The ever-poised people all over the world talking. Queen Camilla, who has supported exclusion that was planned by Princess Anne. The stern royal backdrop for this photo session, which was intended to represent. What impact does this have on the House of Windsor's precarious power structure? It becomes evident that advised other woman to the Queen consort. But old grudges don't go away easily. Additional moment at Balmoral captioned, but the drama is hidden by simplicity that same weekend. The Scottish Highlands provide a magnificent backdrop that evokes the idea to have a family photo shoot to commemorate the third in 2024. Anne was observed strictly following procedure and refusing to break ranks. It suggests a purposeful who is renowned for her unwavering commitment to custom and in early September 2025 served as the present solidarity during a period of change for the monarchy. This is more than just a family portrait as the audience. Contrarily, Camilla has worked hard to gain her position. Princess of Wales Catherine and his unwavering sister Princess Anne at the city. The image, taken by a dependable palace photographer, the entire lineup, including Camilla riding in a carriage with Charles, was depicted in Trooping the Color. She joined him at Windsor for Easter services in April. Observers. Earlier in June 20 stands in stark contrast to her straightforward style. According to reports from September 2025, there was a claim that Camilla's presence would muddy the message of togetherness, particularly in light of rumors about her health or duty-related exhaustion. Anne's history of sticking to justify the exclusion. But is this ban a one-off or part of a pattern? Anne's positioning at the center could shares William's vision for a contemporary monarchy, and their tight relationship grew stronger during Anne's 2024. Others denounced it as trivial. According to a YouGov poll conducted in late September 2025, private discussions with aides, she has remained composed in public, smiling for the cameras at a literary festival in Oxford in early October, while avoiding inquiries about the snub. But you can feel the ache. A trend of marginalization is shown by social media poll, but this exclusion runs the risk of rekindling old scars and bringing back memories of tabloid hate from the 1990s. Family's event in 2024 were frequently received with cold formality. Anne's perception of Camilla as a consort rather than core royalty may be reflected in the photo ban. Historical parallels that allude to ingrained hierarchy response has the potential to reshape her legacy and the delicate balance of the monarchy. The complex set of regulation, tradition, and hierarchy made the deliberate choice to exclude Queen Camilla from the September 2025 image, which was based on the strict framework of the monarchy, not brand new. When Camilla proposed a little diversion during a joint engagement in Hampshire in 2024, Anne's insistence on the photo prohibition is an outward expression of a private division, indicating that Camilla is still seen as an outsider by Anne despite her face because he is torn between his wife's role and his sister's traditionalism. The public's view of a broken monarchy is heightened by posts on X from September 2025, when discussions about tradition versus fairness are fueled by hot hashtag constantly marginalized. William, the future king, must make a decision. To stop more rift, represent continuity. Her flawless record gives her this authority. Anne exceeded even William with almost 400 engagements in 2024 alone. Camilla's more glitzy public presence, which some perceive as artificial, September 25th YouTube video titled "Princess Anne Finally Exposes Camilla's Dark Royal Secret" fueled Camilla's position by indicating her guardianship over the monarchy's image. The entire family is impacted to the family's conflict. A Cosmopolitan piece from October 2025 features a indicating that the ban had widened already existing rifts. From a controversial person to a survivors at Clarence House and establishing a library in Cornwall. And she worked quietly for years to gain the public's approval. Her efforts were rewarded. Pressure increased when her son Tom Parker BS came under fire for promoting a cookbook in 2025 and to resist Anne's influence and run the danger of creating further tension, or retreat tactfully and maintain your dignity while creating a seed. Unwavering commitment to this unspoken ethic is at the center of the issue over Camilla's exclusion from the Balmoral. Camilla's name was purportedly removed from a decree on royal patrons in 2024, setting a precedent for this omission and suggesting a trend of marginalization. The ramifications of Anne's protocol-driven choice extend well beyond the photo session. It might make Camilla feel even more alone in the family and undermine her hard-won right to be queen. A course like hacked on Basila. The stability of the monarchy is threatened by the position. Denmark and other European monarchies have welcomed flexibility by letting younger royals take a back seat. Of Princess Anne's purported choice to keep Queen Camilla out of the Balmoral photos as the House of Windsor negotiates this difficult period is profoundly reflected in this single photograph, Windsor in 2024. Her daring action, however, runs the risk of authorizing the photo shoot to prevent a public argument, with William and Catherine on either side, suggests a return to giving blood royals priority. Debate abounds on social media, from Instagram comments to X posts. While Anne's traditionalism is praised by some, others view it as values merit and inclusivity. As heir, Prince William must make a crucial decision. His mental health issues fits in better with Catherine's friendly demeanor than Anne's strict protocol. However, he is pragmatic like Anne, and their strong relationship, which was established amid Catherine's health issues and followers, especially her kids, who have subtly assimilated into the royal community. A mistake could increase public skepticism. Her response might pressure William, which with 2020 Quora discussion about royal protocol by social media posts on sites like X in August 2025. She is caught off guard by Anne's influence over Charles, despite her public call in October 2025. The snub makes it more difficult for the wider effects. Camilla's allies, such as her kids Tom and Laura Parker BS, full of Anne's focus on blood royals. Charles's idea of support unity or align with Anne's purist relevance in a time when diversity is valued more highly than strict hierarchy. This one act might reshape royal dynamics or crumble under the weight of its own regulations to the test. The ramifications, highlighting the British monarchy's vulnerable position in a world that is changing quickly. If this split will mean a return to bloodline purity, or if it will require the monarch Charles III's reign is in its third year and has been characterized by his vision of a more efficient, cost-effective.
Queen Camilla had effectively vanished from public life. Her name was still on the royal website. Her official portrait still hung in galleries. But inside Buckingham Palace, her presence was a ghost. No royal engagements, no charity appearances, no press interviews. It was as if the crown had placed her behind glass, visible, but no longer touched. The queen consort had become the monarchy's most elegant omission. Within the palace walls, staff avoided speaking her name. Her former ladies-in-waiting were reassigned. Her personal monogram, once embossed on correspondents, was now replaced with the royal crest alone. Events she once hosted, such as the Spring Garden Tea and the Summer Literacy Luncheon, were quietly absorbed into Queen Catherine's portfolio. Even her personal chefs had been transferred to Windsor, but the true shift wasn't procedural. It was emotional. King Charles, shaken and burdened, had withdrawn as well. According to courtier memos, he spent long hours alone in the royal study, often revisiting private journals of Queen Elizabeth and Prince Philip. One footman described the atmosphere as perpetual twilight, a kingdom caught between obligation and grief. Charles's silence was interpreted differently by each faction. For supporters of Anne and William, it was the silent admission of guilt and the burden of justice. For Camilla's dwindling allies, it was abandonment. Meanwhile, inside Ray Mill House, Camilla walked her gardens alone. Reports from local staff confirmed her days had become quiet and repetitive. Morning tea at 7, gardening until 11, reading newspapers obsessively until lunch. Letters remained unopened. Dozens of sympathy cards arrived from aristocratic friends, but she replied to none. Her mobile remained off most days. Her only constant companion, a liver spaniel named Dottie, and yet, not all silence meant surrender. Deep within the archives of the Duchy of Lancaster, an investigator appointed by the Crown unearthed a second set of documents, communications between Tom Parker Bowles and senior partners at Merchant & Holdings, a Luxembourg-based holding group known for discreet acquisitions. These exchanges referenced intellectual property licensing for legacy-driven culinary experiences tied to Windsor motifs and Princess Diana's childhood recipes. The name Diana had never been commercially authorized. This revelation struck like lightning. For Prince William, this was sacrilege. To see his mother's memory co-opted by a family with no blood claim ignited a fury rarely seen. According to sources close to Kensington Palace, he reportedly told his private secretary, "That name is sacred," and they treated it like a menu item. William demanded an emergency Privy Council session. Within 48 hours, palace communications were updated. A new protocol was enacted. No royal names, living or deceased, could be used in association with commercial ventures unless explicitly authorized by the reigning monarch and the direct blood heirs. All existing ventures were frozen pending legal review. Public reaction was swift. Tabloids erupted. The Daily Mail ran the headline, "Diana's name for sale?" The Guardian questioned the opaque nature of royal-adjacent commercial structures. On social media, number Defend Diana trended globally, with celebrities, historians, and even parliament members weighing in. Lady Penelope Rathmore, a lifelong friend of the late princess, gave a rare televised interview. Diana gave her image to the people, not to brands. To see her name misused is not just wrong, it's heartbreaking. The outrage had reached a level that could no longer be managed quietly. And yet, Camilla remained silent. Was it guilt? Was it a strategy? Or was it a calculated retreat to outlast the storm? Inside the palace, the question haunted Charles. In a private exchange with Princess Anne, overheard by staff, he reportedly muttered, "They'll never forgive her. Not for this." Anne did not answer. She simply walked away. The family was no longer divided. It was dismantled. The press dubbed it the silent fall. No resignation, no scandalous confrontation, just a slow, methodical erasure. And in the vacuum left behind, William and Anne stepped forward not as rebels, but as restorers. One palace insider described the dynamic as the most quiet coup in modern royal history. At a state dinner hosted in Scotland, Princess Anne delivered a toast honoring Queen Elizabeth's values of duty over comfort, blood over convenience, and legacy over ambition. The message was thinly veiled, but crystal clear. The hall rose in thunderous applause. Camilla watched the clip from Ray Mill House alone. She turned off the TV, placed it on mute, and stared at her reflection in the black screen. A woman once at the center of power, now a silhouette. Her era was over, and yet a final chapter was still waiting in the wings. By the second week of May, 2025, the balance of power within the British monarchy had shifted irreversibly. With Camilla in exile and Charles emotionally withdrawn, the stage was no longer shared, it was inherited. Prince William and Princess Anne, once cast in supporting roles, had assumed full control of the palace narrative. But their alliance was not forged in ambition, it was forged in fire. The public called it the Iron Alliance. Anne, the monarchy's unshakable compass, and William, the heir born under the shadow of tragedy, had become the architects of a new Windsor era, one defined not by pageantry but by principle. Inside the walls of St. James's Palace, meetings once chaired by Charles were now quietly led by Anne. At Kensington, William initiated a sweeping review of all royal charitable trusts, looking for signs of commercial interference, unauthorized branding, or offshore involvement. What began as a purge had evolved into an audit of purpose. William and Anne's first major move was to reconstitute the Royal Legacy Committee, a once ceremonial body now given real power. Its revised mandate: protect the moral and financial sanctity of Queen Elizabeth II's and Princess Diana's public image, and ensure all royal engagements aligned with their original ethos of service. Their second move was bolder. They opened the Royal Archives. For the first time in modern history, the public was granted limited access to a curated digital vault of royal correspondence, historic financial disclosures, and philanthropic records. It was an unprecedented act of transparency. William called it a window into the values we were raised on. But behind the scenes, this transparency was a tactical strike. Among the records published were details that clarified years of rumors: Camilla's influence over the placement of friends into ceremonial roles, her children's proximity to commercial ventures, the casual bending of protocol that had grown unnoticed during Charles's early reign. It wasn't scandalous, it was systemic, and it justified every decision Anne and William had made. Inside the House of Lords, the response was mixed. Traditionalists balked at the break from royal discretion, while modernists praised the transparency. In Australia and New Zealand, Republican movements paused their campaigns, citing a renewed sense of institutional integrity. At Balmoral, Anne summoned a private roundtable of senior Windsors, the Duke of Edinburgh, Princess Beatrice, and Zara Tyndall among them. The message, unity is now non-negotiable. This is not about revenge, Anne reportedly said. It's about survival. Charles did not attend. Instead, he remained at Highgrove, where he was visited by only a handful of aides. His health had not deteriorated physically, but insiders noted he had lost weight, appeared fatigued, and spent hours rereading speeches written by his mother. One staff member recalled seeing him alone in the chapel, clutching her prayer book. Yet no one dared say what they all feared: that the king had abdicated in spirit, if not in form. Meanwhile, Camilla remained locked in her self-imposed exile. The only correspondence she received was a single note from Charles, handwritten, folded neatly, and delivered without seal. Its contents were never disclosed, but a close friend of the family confided it. Read, "I chose duty. Forgive me." She never replied. Elsewhere, the press was awash in what it called the Restoration. Poll numbers soared. William's favorability reached 82%. Anne was dubbed the Windsor Sentinel by the Times. Even Queen Catherine, though quiet, was seen as the embodiment of poised continuity. The public, exhausted by years of spectacle, had found new faith in structure. Yet, with every reform, a new question emerged. How far would this go? Some speculated that the Iron Alliance would propose constitutional updates to permanently bar non-bloodline individuals from receiving any level of trust control, branding rights, or ceremonial authority. Others whispered of a future where even royal marriages would require parliamentary review. Extreme? Perhaps. But the wound left by Camilla's missteps had hardened into resolve. And still, not a word from her. Not a rebuttal, not a press statement, not even a leak. Royal biographer Imogen Fieldstone commented on BBC Newsnight, "Camilla's silence is not grace, it's strategy. She's waiting, but she may not understand that the Windsor machine has already moved on." And it had. With startling speed, by late May, a newly commissioned Windsor Code of Ethics was ratified by the Royal Advisory Council. It formalized what had once been understood, that royal duty was a privilege bound to history, not a platform for influence. Every working member of the royal family would now sign an annual statement of compliance, including the monarch. It was Anne's idea. William approved it within the hour. The monarchy was no longer an inheritance of comfort. It was a mantle of rules. And for those who once treated it as negotiable, the doors were closing. The early days of June 2025 brought an eerie calm to the royal landscape, less a return to peace, more a breath held in suspense. The storm had passed, but the cracks it left behind were now baked into the very stones of Buckingham Palace. Queen Camilla's absence, though never officially addressed, had become institutionalized. Her name was no longer uttered at official events. She was neither seen nor expected. And yet, her shadow lingered like a bruise beneath royal protocol. But silence is not closure. Behind the scenes, pressure mounted for King Charles to clarify the monarchy's position not just on Camilla, but on the broader matter of royal succession, ceremonial roles, and the future shape of the crown. Parliament was asking questions. Commonwealth leaders whispered of contingencies. Even loyalists in the Church of England hinted at a shift in divine perception. Would Charles finish the reign he had waited a lifetime to begin? Or was history writing his epilogue before he could? It was Princess Anne who made the first move. At a closed-door assembly of the Royal Advisory Council, Anne proposed a constitutional recommendation that the monarch delegate expanded ceremonial authority to the Prince of Wales. It was framed as lightening the sovereign's burden, but everyone in the room knew what it meant. It was the first formal step toward transition. Charles did not oppose it. Instead, he requested 3 days. During that time, he secluded himself at Sandringham, walking the rose gardens alone, rereading handwritten letters from his mother. Staff reported that he spent long nights awake, lights on in the study, revisiting speeches he never gave. On the 3rd day, he returned to London. He walked into the council chamber, nodded once, and simply said, "So be it." Oh, and the very next week, on June 10th, 2025, what would have been Prince Philip's 104th birthday, the Royal Transition Act was quietly introduced in Parliament. Though largely symbolic in its first phase, it legally empowered the Prince of Wales to preside over all public ceremonies, foreign visits, and national addresses. In effect, William was now the acting monarch in all but name. The Iron Alliance had succeeded. And yet, no one celebrated. Camilla remained at Ray Mill House, a ghost in her own legacy. Rumors swirled that she might release a memoir, perhaps sit for a tell-all interview. But nothing came. Not even a whisper. Her silence, once seen as calculated, was now read as resignation. One former courtier described her as fading into myth present only in footnotes. But history has no room for unresolved endings. On June 15th, a confidential letter was leaked to the press. Written by Camilla to Charles just weeks earlier, it was raw and unguarded. "You chose them. I understand now. I will not return, not because I am uninvited, but because I no longer belong. My love for you is real, but so is my exile. Tell them nothing. Let me disappear with dignity." The letter shook the nation. For the first time, Camilla's voice was heard not in scandal, but in sorrow. Public reaction was split. Some sympathized. Others accused her of playing victim. But the consensus was clear. The era of Queen Camilla had officially ended. And in her absence, the royal family moved swiftly. Queen Catherine was quietly installed as patron of several charities previously under Camilla's name. The annual Royal Garden Party was rebranded as the Queen's Summer Assembly, marking Catherine's first solo hosting of a major ceremonial event. She wore pale blue, echoing a dress Diana once wore at the same garden decades earlier. It was not subtle. It was a signal. William, now leading state visits, delivered a speech at the United Nations headquarters in New York. His tone was assertive, his presence unshakable. Journalists remarked that he sounded like a king because he was. Anne, in parallel, resumed military inspections across the Commonwealth, reinforcing her role as the Iron Regent. In her interviews, she avoided discussion of Camilla entirely. But in one candid moment, she told the Times, "There are things one does not say not because they are false, but because they no longer matter." The monarchy had turned a page, but not all wounds had healed. At Clarence House, portraits of Charles and Camilla still hung in quiet corners, untouched but uncelebrated. Staff moved through rooms like caretakers in a museum of recent history. The Queen's former dressing room had been locked, its contents preserved. A gilded box of handwritten letters from Charles remained sealed on the vanity. No one dared move it. Royal historians began calling the events of spring 2025 the quiet restructuring. It lacked the fireworks of abdication or scandal, but it had achieved what no rebellion ever could: a bloodless transition, architected by loyalty and enforced by silence. And in that silence, a new monarchy was taking shape. William, Catherine, Anne, George, Charlotte, the names are now carved into the foundation of the next royal age. Charles remained king, but the future no longer waited for his consent. It had already begun. The end didn't come with a coronation. There was no grand proclamation, no velvet-draped fanfare. Just a quiet ripple that swept through the foundations of the monarchy, a whisper carried through marble corridors, across distant Commonwealth embassies, and into the hearts of a public long tired of spectacle. By July 2025, the transition was complete, without abdication, without scandal. And yet, to all watching, the truth was undeniable. King Charles had faded into ceremonial shadow, and William, Anne, and Catherine had become the living faces of a monarchy reborn. public approval soared. A Gallup UK poll released on July 5th recorded the highest confidence in the monarchy since 1997. William stood at 84% favorability, Anne at 79%, and Catherine at a staggering 88%. More importantly, the under 40 demographic, once apathetic toward royal matters, had begun tuning back in. They weren't just watching, they were approving. One headline from The Guardian read, "The monarchy didn't reinvent itself. It returned to what it was supposed to be." Camilla was never mentioned, not by name, not in context, not even in rumors. She had become an erased presence. The only lingering trace of her influence came in the form of a quiet editorial by royal commentator Sir Roland Farley, titled "The Cost of Proximity." He wrote, "Power is not inherited through affection. It is inherited through principle." That was the lesson of 2025. Inside palace strategy rooms, the term succession architecture became the buzzword of the decade. Anne, ever methodical, led a task force to define the roles of every bloodline Windsor for the next 2 generations. William focused on the modernization of royal diplomacy. Under his guidance, foreign policy speeches shifted tone from tradition to pragmatism. Sustainability, humanitarian alliances, and digital ethics replaced pageantry and platitudes. Catherine, meanwhile, became the face of legacy. Her rebranding of the Queen's Trust into the Crown Initiative, a global education and wellness fund, was lauded as a masterstroke in soft power. In 1 year alone, the initiative raised over £65 million, partnering with over 100 countries. The monarchy was no longer an institution trapped in velvet. It was a living system. Charlotte and George were slowly introduced into public duties. George attended his first solo engagement, a youth climate summit in Oslo at just 12. Charlotte delivered a poem in memory of Queen Elizabeth II during the remembrance ceremony. No press was invited, but the royal social media accounts posted clips. The comments flooded in. "This is the future we wanted. No scandals, just service. The crown feels human again." But none of it came easy. Behind closed doors, wounds still festered. Charles had not resumed public engagements. He remained mostly in seclusion at Balmoral, surrounded by books, paintings, and silence. Though he issued brief statements, approvals, condolences, acknowledgements, they lacked weight. They were signatures, not leadership. Camilla was never seen again. Ray Mill House was reportedly put up for sale. A trusted aide confirmed she had moved to a private estate in southern France. Some whispered of illness. Others said she had found peace. But no source could confirm. She was gone, not disgraced, not exiled, just gone. In a quiet moment at Kensington Palace, on what would have been Diana's 64th birthday, William stood with George and Charlotte beneath the statue erected in her honor. No media, no speeches. Just 3 generations, one memory. Later that day, the official royal family account posted a simple image: a white rose on a stone bench. No caption, no hashtags. It trended worldwide. Anne, in a private journal later donated to the Royal Archives, wrote, "Some things cannot be corrected, only carried, but carrying makes us strong." And so they carried on. On July 30th, in a rare joint statement, William and Anne addressed the nation. "What we restore is not perfection, but direction. What we preserve is not power, but purpose. The crown is not a symbol of privilege. It is a responsibility passed from hand to hand, from heart to heart." The speech lasted only 5 minutes, but its impact would last for decades. Newspapers called it the Quiet Ascension. Biographers dubbed the events of 2025 the 4th Reformation of the British monarchy. Scholars debated whether Camilla's downfall was a tragedy or a necessity. But the public? They had already chosen. They moved on. The monarchy, too, moved on older, wiser, leaner. Not through force, not through fanfare, but through the willful, strategic silence of those who understood that sometimes preserving the future means erasing part of the present. And in that silence, a new crown was forged, not from gold, but from principle.